Are you a university student who's wondering if you're cut out to be the next Elon Musk? Well, keep watching because I'm going to be reviewing a Kaggle notebook I created where I reviewed some data, analyzed it, and also trained a few machine learning models on it. All of my research is written in a Kaggle notebook, linked in the description below, so feel free to open it up and follow along as I go. So the data comes from about 200 Indian university students, which are aged 17 to 24, from Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University in Delhi, India, which is ranked 66th among general universities in India, so it's pretty good. And this dataset comes from a research paper from this university where researchers wanted to determine which qualities determine whether or not students will become entrepreneurs. The Indian government helped fund this research because they want more Naval Ravikants, more Satya Nadellas, more Sundar Pichais of the world. Ultimately, entrepreneurs are the people who challenge the status quo and ultimately move our society forward by presenting new ideas in the forms of companies and businesses. So the first category I looked at was which field the students studied in. For the rest of the video, 0 means not likely to become an entrepreneur and 1 means likely. So this is a binary classification task. The engineering sciences, generally the more applied sciences, in contrast the more theoretical natural sciences. So like anything like software engineering, computer engineering, electrical engineering, all those kinds of engineering, that they're kind of in engineering sciences. And what's cool is that engineering sciences were 3 times more likely to become entrepreneurs out of these students than actual business majors and economics students and finance students. And the reason that there is a lot of engineering sciences students is because India is generally known for having a lot of engineers in multiple disciplines, so this kind of explains this. And a lot of university students also want to become engineers in India. I also found that students 19 to 20 have the best chance at becoming entrepreneurs. This is probably because they likely either haven't done an internship yet, or they haven't worked at a place yet, or just maybe because they're just really, really ambitious at a young age. I also looked at competitiveness, and it makes sense, of course. The more competitive you are, the more likely you are to become an entrepreneur. Because as an entrepreneur, you're going to have a lot of competitors, especially overseas as well. And you're all competing for funding, for customer visibility, for all these things, which makes sense. But how does living in a city affect your competitiveness? The data also shows that students from a city are more likely to become entrepreneurs. There's a higher population in cities, and it's likely in those cities they had a lot of competition to get into good primary and secondary schools. From the second figure, city students are also vastly more competitive than those not from cities. And the reason is because cities generally give more funding, more networking, and a lot more competition opportunities, but also there's a lot more people competing for those opportunities. So the amount of people and opportunities both increase in the city, thus making students growing up in the city more competitive and more likely to be entrepreneurs. There's also roughly a 50% less chance that a student with a mental disorder could become an entrepreneur. However, this category is a little bit problematic because it's not specific on which kinds of mental disorders, because a lot of them can be treated and cured. A lot of them cannot be cured, so that the nuance kind of needs to get involved in that. But what about physical health? Physical health is a little more complicated, as the students with no entrepreneurial competency and not good physical health, 3 and less, are also likely to not be mentally healthy and thus more likely to have a mental disorder. However, students with okay to good health, which means greater than 3, are more likely to be entrepreneurially competent, as a better physical health, which makes sense because a better physical health allows one to handle stress better. As an entrepreneur, you're going to be dealing with mountains and mountains of stress. I also grouped together a bunch of traits, and having a 4 and 5 will obviously lead to success with these specific traits. However, what's interesting to me is having a 4 on self-confidence is the most important trait, followed by a 4 on having a desire to take initiative. My guess is the reason that the 4s are better than the 5s in this case is maybe because the 5s might be a little overly fixated on those traits. They could be students who maybe read too many self-help books or just kind of focusing on having those traits be present, rather than the 4s who have those traits, but they kind of work in the background. And thus the 4s have more time to focus on their business rather than the 5s. Self-confidence is also something that comes with experience and failure, since someone who learns from their mistakes knows they won't repeat them again, and thus are more confident than the beginner or the person who doesn't try. Being influenced by someone, whether it be a current CEO, business professor, or any other mentor, is absolutely crucial towards becoming a successful entrepreneur. And we'll also see that this is actually the most correlated trait, which thus means it's the most important trait. Thus, having conversations with the people in the position that you want to work in is extremely important and applies to literally any field, including entrepreneurs. So if you want to start your own company, you talk to people who started their own companies and who went through what you did. And you can also learn a lot of their mistakes, not just focus on the successes, but also what not to do. It also appears that males are more likely to become entrepreneurs, which is representative of, most first world countries. Like, there's a lot more billionaire males than billionaire women. That's just how it is. It's likely that the reason for this is because women aren't provided with as much family support, or perhaps just have less interest in being entrepreneurs. Nothing wrong with that. There's also another field where students lacking entrepreneurial competency gave reasons as to why they didn't want to do it. The most common reasons why students lack entrepreneurial competency is just not interested, academic pressure, lack of knowledge. Waiting for more opportunities are also common reasons that prevent students from being entrepreneurially competent. Working for a corporation, the government, or university, or just pursuing research are also the alternatives of these students take. After some feature engineering, I created this giant correlation matrix. And yes, as I mentioned earlier, it appears the most correlated trait towards a student's likelihood of becoming successful entrepreneur is whether or not they're influenced by somebody. This someone could be a family member who runs their own company, a relative, or just someone they admire online, or even a business professor. The next correlated categories were whether or not they had individual projects and having good physical health. The rest of the categories weren't really that correlated that well, so I just didn't end up using them in the training sets. Now, finally, onto the machine learning models. I trained a random forest classifier, an XGBoost classifier, as well as a k-nearest neighbors classifier, and then ensembled them all together in a soft voting classifier. And the highest accuracy I could get was about 69 to 70%, which seems low, but considering that there's only 3 categories that really correlate and there are each only 10 to 20% correlation, I think the models performed pretty well. Some future steps I could do would be probably to analyze that last column I kind of dropped out, which was reasons for lacking entrepreneurial competency. There's actually one madman who actually did NLP analysis on it, and you could get it, and he got his classifier up to 80%. And 69 to 70% accuracy is the highest I could get without using any deep learning techniques. This, as well as the correlation matrix, both show that there are many other factors that influence whether or not you could become a great entrepreneur, such as the physical location for where you were born, socioeconomic class, which kind of schools you went to, what are your interests, there's probably hundreds and hundreds of different categories that all kind of have to go right for you to actually be a successful entrepreneur. However, if there's anything you do take away from this video, is that the influence column is the most important. So talk to people who are in the field that you want to work in. Talk to successful entrepreneurs, talk to PhD students, talk to other people talk to people in the positions that you want to be in the next 5 years. And that'll kind of help you build a roadmap for how you should approach the next 5 years at whatever stage of life you are. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. If you like machine learning content, I also made a machine learning meme review, as well as it's a little bit of deep learning as well. And yeah, check that video out if you're into machine learning. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching.